Today is day 14. World building. Ever since Tolkien first printed his book with a little map at the front, the concept of world building has fascinated many people, myself included. I think it's awesome. It gives you the opportunity to play God, recreate society how you'd like it, or symbolically represent the aspects of society that you don't like. You get to play anthropologist with societies and peoples that have never even existed. Archaeologist, historian. I was gonna make one video on world building and then I started thinking about it and it's not gonna fit in one video, so here's video number 1 about it. First off, I'm gonna talk about transport. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to start with world building, but yeah, it's on my mind. Because I was writing my story and it came up. I hadn't decided how people got around in my story. I was just like, I need to get from place A to place B in a car. So I just wrote in a car. And then I was like, later I was thinking, no, I don't want them to be in a car. I want them to be in something more entertaining. So I'm not sure which is the better way to do it, whether you build your world first and make decisions like what people get around in before you start writing, before you actually get to it, or whether it's better just to, make it up as you go along. Which, it actually got me really excited about my story again because I had to invent some new things, and I like inventing new things. No cars! So when it comes to deciding how your peeps get around, it makes a big difference whether or not you're sci-fi or fantasy. If you're real world, then, most of the decisions have already been made for you by the world. But there is some world building when you're setting it in the real world, and I'll get to that in a later video. When you're getting around in a fantasy world, you tend to be doing it either on foot, or involving some sort of beast, like a horse or something more exotic, kangaroo. Sometimes magic might be involved. But then you have to make decisions as to how common this form of transport is. You probably want to phase more exotic forms in, so that the reader finds them interesting when they come about. If the reader's saturated with really interesting ways of getting around when the story starts, then there's nowhere to take them. But I will not go on a magic tangent just now. And the animals that, transport people, they could be horses, armoured squirrels. It's your world. They could be armoured flying sharks, if you want them to. No one's gonna ask you to explain yourself. And if you find that your characters are asking you to explain yourself, then you might want to question whether or not you should be writing so late at night with so much coffee. In space, you tend to need to have some sort of ship to get people from A to B, but the ship can vary. Could be a living ship. More traditionally, it's just an inanimate ship. I'm sure there's some people who spend ages and ages drawing and designing their ships before they even start writing the story. That's not me. When I got to having to describe a ship, I suggested an animal that maybe it looked like, and got on with my life. I think that I'll draw it at some stage, or change it, but it's just not my thing. But when they get to a planet, how do they get around? Do they get around on speeders, cars, more magical beasts of some sort? You just have so many options with sci-fi. But there are limitations that you can introduce as well. Does your planet have to worry about climate change? Is there a shortage of adequate power? Does custom decree that a certain animal pulls the carts around? One way that I like to world build is to randomize a bunch of variables to work around. This can be done by putting words or pictures on playing cards and shuffling them up and dealing out 3 or 4 of them, and then designing a place based on what you've drawn. Limitation is gold to creativity. Maybe you could do something like this when you're creating vehicles or animals. Anyway, that's me for now. I will continue this world building thing tomorrow. I like it. See ya.